Hi everybody, this is a fall of 2020 update, sort of like part 2 for the video that's posted on the Self page. So let's get started. First of all, I want to point out to you that we have, well, most of you know by now that there's a new website compared to what I used to use last year. So this is the regular webpage, karabihealthpe.com, and I can go down and click on health, or I can just use the navigation bar. And I know that I'm working on self, and we know we're in the wellness unit, so I go down and I click the self page. So if you're watching this video in order, you would have already noticed, here's the table of contents, you can jump around, but you would have already noticed a few things about the big question, and I'm going to get back to that as well. And here is the slideshow that I'm going to show you, and here is the old video from the fall of 2019, and this is again part 2, and there's a bunch of information on this page for you to be able to see. But a really quick review of something that you should have seen on the first day that we talked about self in the fall of 2020, and that was the big question was, who am I? Right? And we said that it was a really huge question to ask, and even though it sounds so simple, and some of you sort of have an idea, it's different for everyone. And who you are right now as an 11th grader at Rush should be different than who you are 2 years from now when you are in your first year out of high school, whether that's in college or the military or trade school or right to work or you're taking a year off, whatever. It should be a different person, because every year and every month and every week for that matter, you grow, you learn more things, you expand, and you get different. So at 45 years old, I'm a little bit different than I was at 35 and 25 and 15. But, you know, so you continue to grow and we continue to change, and hopefully we continue to change for the better and evolve. But in addition to that, you also should be different than you were 2 years ago. So who am I and who am I right now? I know this slideshow said 5 years, but, you know, we're really, I'm just keeping it simple. And we basically said that the definition of self is who you are. So self-esteem was how high or how low you think about yourself. Self-concept was how you think about yourself compared to how others see you. Self-image is what you think others think about you. So again, the difference is self-esteem is what we talk about most often. It's how high or how low, right? And some people put themselves up on a pedestal and make themselves higher than they actually are, and because they have low self-esteem, and other people put other people down because they have low self-esteem. But the opposite is they have too high self-esteem. Now, I know some psychologists will say there's no such thing as too high self-esteem. Well, some psychologists will say that there's no such thing as self-esteem. It's just a sense of self. But the psychologists that say that you can't have self-esteem that's too high, they're not taking into consideration the people that have unrealistic expectations of themselves, which moves down to self-image. What you think others think about you, how you think about, and self-concept, how you think about yourself compared to how others see you. So some of us have this unrealistic idea of who we are or what we can accomplish or what we can do. And as a coach of soccer, softball, flag football, and bowling, I can tell you that oftentimes there are athletes who think that they deserve to be a starter and think that they deserve to be like getting a college scholarship, and they just are unrealistic compared to the skill level that they have compared to the skill level around them with other players that are competing for the same scholarships or the same starting jobs. So your self-esteem, it should be healthy, but it can't be too high, and it obviously can't be too low, because too low, you're always hurting yourself. So if you flip through this slideshow, it gives you more detailed definitions of self-esteem and then self-concept. And you can watch the other video if you were absent from class or you're not one of my students to be able to get a very basic explanation about this. And you know, so you can go through, you can also pause this video at any time you want to. And then we talked about personality, and we specifically looked at the theory of multiple intelligences from Howard Gardner, and we looked at True Colors personality tests from Duvall I think it was. So we checked those out. And then what made me me? And we looked through a bunch of different things. We talked about genetics. We talked about sex and puberty. We talked about not having sex, of course, the sex that is assigned at birth. We talked about gender. We talked about family influences, traditions, norms, behaviors. We talked about culture and ethnicity and the things that come with that. We talked about pop culture. We talked about major life events. And then we said, what else? So what do you think it is, right? So, and it said to pause here after class 1. And then later on in the week, we talked a little bit about body image. We didn't spend too much time on that because you've talked about that plenty of times at Rush since 9th grade and other classes. But we did some activities with the Padlet and things like that. And if you're watching this ahead of time just because you want to, then you'll know that you will eventually do that. So you checked on some body image things, and we talked about what is beauty and stuff like that. And so what are we at now? What is a healthy sense of self? And this is an important question because I just finished telling you that you shouldn't have self-esteem that's too high and unrealistic, but that you should have a healthy sense of self-esteem. So what am I talking about that when I say that? A healthy sense of self, whether you're talking about self-esteem, self-concept, self-image, just a healthy sense of self, who you are as a person, is understanding who you are, what sort of personality you have, what your strengths are, what your intelligences are, what you're good at, traits people like, traits people dislike, what you're not so good at, areas of strength that you can excel in, areas of weakness that need improvement. There's nothing wrong with not having everyone like you, but you shouldn't purposely give them a reason not to like you by your character. So we also talked about outlook and character and personality, and along with that, how I look at life compared to how I act with my character for people to see me. But your sense of self, you shouldn't be too hard on yourself. You shouldn't be your harshest critic all of the time. Like Debbie Downer or Negative Norman, like where does it all come from, right? Some people give up because they have a poor sense of self before they even should. All right, so in class I'm going to tell you to do this, but if you're watching this on your own, I want you to raise your hand as high as you can. Now raise it higher. Every single one of you, if you did that, you just raised your hand higher. Let that be a message for you. Be careful of the words, I can't. I can't yet is acceptable. Maybe I can do this, and then I'll see how well I do it. I can't do that well enough. I can't do that as well as somebody else. I'm not really that good at. Those are all good statements to say. But I can't means that I won't. I can't means that you won't even try and you've already given up. And don't let somebody tell you you can't do something. They might say, well, I saw you do that and I know that you're not going to be as good as someone else, so you're not going to be able to pursue that. And that's accurate. But don't let somebody say that you can't when you've never even tried. And you don't either. Don't give up. You can't do everything. That's the truth. But you can try everything and you can see what you're good at. So again, recognize your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, take one step at a time, and here are some actual just practical tips of what to do to foster a healthy sense of self. You can maintain or improve. If you don't have a healthy sense of self, you can get one. And if you do have a healthy sense of self, then you can make it better or maintain it. Just a few simple ideas. First, positive self-talk. Stop the negative. Go to a mirror and talk to yourself. Write yourself notes. Leave them around the house. Say things like, you can do this. Don't give up. And again, be realistic. Will Smith has a YouTube video from when he was younger saying that he has an extraordinary work ethic and he never allows someone to tell him to be realistic. And what he means by that is he's never going to give up, and when he really wants to do something, he's going to learn and put the time in to be able to do it. But he also knows he's only going to be able to do it the best that he can do it. that he might not be able to compare with other people depending on what it is that he's doing. All right, so everyone is good at something. That goes back to the multiple intelligences. And if you didn't do that class, if you were absent from that class, go to the personality page of my website, and you'll be able to check that out on your own and understand what it is. Focus on your strengths and improve your weaknesses. So understand what you're good at and understand what you're not, and try to make your weaknesses better and try to make your strengths stronger. We can't do everything great. I've already said that again, but you can't just focus on the weaknesses, and I bet some of you do. Accept compliments. It's really hard sometimes for people to accept compliments. I know a lot of times people will compliment me with different things that I've done, and I immediately think in my head, yeah, but I could have done it this way, or thanks, but, you know. So just accept the compliments. They saw something that they're thankful for, or that they think that you did well. Accept them. Be realistic, but don't give up on your dreams. That basically sums up what I was saying about be realistic, but always trying new things. Some other things, find positive friends and role models. Sometimes you only act the way you do because the people around you are toxic. So find positive friends and good role models to help you make your way through this life, identifying yourself. Find something positive and satisfying to be able to do, but don't make it violent and don't make it hurtful to yourself or others or other things, but find something positive and satisfying to do. Get to the root causes of why you have a negative sense of self, why you have low self-esteem, why you have low self-concept. Why do you think that you're weaker than somebody else does? Okay? Evaluate for real how others see you. So you need to really think how others see you. So one person I used to know said, everyone likes me, everybody gets along, and they would like brag about it, and most of us didn't. We tolerated them because we had to, because they were part of the workplace. But they would talk about how great of a person they were, and that definitely is a poor sense of self. Even if they had good self-esteem, they did not have a poor self, a good, accurate self-concept of how others saw them. Identify you and be true to that. So figure out who you are, that big question again, who am I? And be true to yourself. And the last but not least is practice being the you want to be. Be the best you that you can be. If you do those things, you'll develop a healthy sense of self, and you're going to love your life better because of it. Thank you so much. If you're one of my students, feel free to email me or leave a comment. If you leave a comment right on the YouTube, I don't always see them fast, so it's easier to just email me if you are one of my students. And I'll see you all in class. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.